Welcome back to another episode of your weekly gaming podcast, Critically Incorrect. I'm your host, Brandon, our online here today with Charlie, if you wanted to say hi.
Hello.
So yeah, we didn't have an episode last week, as you saw, just because, essentially, I don't know, Charlie, did you want to mention what was going on or anything like that?
Yeah, basically, I just wasn't in town. I was away for work last week, so I wanted to be able to record whilst I was away, but the internet sucked in the hotel. So annoyingly, I couldn't really do anything aside from use my PS5 offline. So yeah, we couldn't record last week, but it does mean this week's a little bit better with news wise and stuff. So we've got a decent amount of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the middle of February here, and you'll definitely tell based on what we'll be talking about. So, yeah, we'll get right into that. But yeah, I guess that's it before we get into, what we've been playing. So, I guess Charlie, start us off with what you've been playing over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start. I mean, I bet might as well just mention the big stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
So for last week we had Sifu and Dying Light 2 release. Um, Sifu I've actually beaten and platinumed. I did that the other day. I platinumed that. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was like basically a flawless game from start to finish, right? Like it's just so good to play. Um, there's just the progression works really well with like permanently upgrading your moves and stuff. I really liked the kind of I won't say it because I don't know what people have and haven't seen, but kind of like the twist with how the game half ends and then doesn't with like an end game. So that's quite cool. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know how long it roughly took me to platinum it, because annoyingly PlayStation doesn't seem to track your hours played if you're not connected to internet. So it says I played 10 hours, but it's probably sort of like 16, 17 hours roughly, I would say. Um, Once you beat the game once, it is a lot easier to beat it again. So once I'd beaten it wasn't too much work to go and platinum the game. The hardest one was beating it in under 25 lives. Like that's really difficult. But it's just basically not dying on the first like four levels, right? And then you have like five lives that you can use on that final one. Um, so yeah, that was probably the hardest trophy, but other than that, it wasn't too bad a platinum. Um, yeah, and then I guess the other thing, Dying Light 2. Um, I can't see really how far I am into the game. I've played a lot. I think Steam says I've got like 23 hours playtime. Um, it's probably close to like 20, 21 if you knock off like just me leaving the game on and stuff. Um, I'm in like the main area of the game, so like the big city area. I've got the paraglider. I don't have the grapple hook yet. But I'm honestly I'm not sure how far I am in the story. There's not really any way to know. Um, but I'm just kind of I played a lot that first weekend before I went away. And I've played it a few hours extra since I got back, but I'm not like in a rush to beat it. Because the story's not really why I'm playing it. The story's the weakest part for me so far. I'm just enjoying going around doing the camps and like the parkour activities and just leveling that stuff up because the kind of repetitive nature of everything in the game is actually really fun, which is nice for a change for an open world game. So I've just been enjoying like dipping into that here and there. So I don't know if I'll have beaten that by the next time we talk, but I'll have definitely played a bit more of it. So yeah, there's that. Obviously, as we're recording this, Horizon did come out today, so I've played, I think, about 2 hours of the game. So I don't really have too many impressions, but from what I've played, it's very similar to the first one. Obviously, it looks a bit better. The combat seems to be a bit more improved melee wise, and like they've expanded the skill trees and that kind of thing. But I've literally only just got to like the first area in the main map. So I've done like the prologue portion of the game, and now I'm kind of into the open world. So I'll have a lot more to say about that next week because I just haven't played enough of that yet. But other than the main games, I honestly haven't played too much else. I did pick up Pokemon for Switch just because it was something to play whilst I was away. I think I played about 3 or 4 hours of it. It seems pretty fun. Like I'm not a big Pokemon guy, but I was enjoying it. but I mainly just got it for whilst I was away, so I don't imagine I'm gonna be playing too much of it in the future. But it'll just be a game I dip into here and there. Um, but yeah, that's about it. I haven't really played any of like my normal games just because I haven't had time. So it's just been getting through all the big releases.
Nice, nice. I played both Sifu and Dying Light 2, so I guess I'll talk about those mainly. Those are mainly the games I've been playing over the last 2 weeks or so. Sifu, I played. Oh, I think I played more Dying Light 2 in total, but I feel like I played more Sifu. I don't know, it's weird. Sifu, I'm really enjoying. I'm honestly really impressed by this game. I've always been looking forward to Sifu ever since we started on that state of play, but I was more looking forward to a game with like satisfying combat, but how good of a roguelike this game is, and also just how satisfying it really is to play, and like how better you get at the game, like how your skill changes as you play it more and more, is quite impressive. Yeah, I could definitely see this going for Game of the Year as it stands. Obviously, it's really early to say that, but I just think of how unique it is and how fun it is. I definitely still think it's going to be a contender based on what we know of what's coming out this year. So yeah, definitely really excited for that. I definitely recommend it if you can like swallow the 40 pill of it. I definitely think it's worth it if you're the game looks like it's up your alley. Looking forward to playing more of that. I want to beat it before Elden Ring next week. That's my main goal. I think I should be able to knock it out this weekend for sure. The other game I've been playing a lot is Dying Light 2. I think I'm only like a little over 10 hours in, which is a lot for my standards. That's why I say it. I'm really enjoying it, to be honest. I didn't really touch Dying Light 1 before Dying Light 2. Like, obviously, I played it like 5 years ago. And then I think me and you, Charlie, we played it for like an hour, like maybe a few months ago. But I
Yeah.
didn't really go to the original before playing the sequel. And, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. We had the reviews come out that trickled in like maybe that same week or a week before. And there was a lot of sevens. And I was like kind of getting worried about it. But the overall gameplay is really fun. It's nothing like amazing, which is why I can kind of see why I got the scores it's got. But it's just a very fun game to play and run around in. I don't know. Dying Light's open world is just one of those where it's like immediately like you're always playing the game, right? There's always like these like yeah, there are these cutscenes, right, that stop in, but like if I ever want to just play a game like Sifu and Dying Light 2, the reason I've been playing them a lot lately is because I can literally just jump in and start playing the game. There's not like a lot of layers between me and playing, so it's been very fun to have those two games back to back. But yeah, I'm honestly really surprised by it. The story is kind of weak. The characters I don't really care for. There's like maybe one or two I care about. And overall, it's kind of weird. Like the first game, I feel like had a more distinct protagonist based on my memory. But yeah, again, we kind of knew this going in. This is more for like the gameplay, side of it. So just know that. But yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by it, I'd say. Besides that, it's just been the usual, I guess. I mean, I haven't really even touched like Deep Rock or Fortnite, which are my usual two multiplayer games. Although I did play a bit of Fortnite today because they added the Uncharted skins. So we don't really have this as a news story because it's not really worth it. But yeah, Fortnite did get the Uncharted skins, which is pretty cool to see. So yeah, there is one thing that you have seen that I haven't seen, and that's the Uncharted movie, which has come out today for United States and a lot of the rest of the world. But I know it came out for Europe like last week, right? So did you want to give your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, yeah, it came out I think last Friday, for like the UK and some of Europe. I saw it on Wednesday with one of my friends. We were both going into it kind of like I wouldn't say negative, but we weren't expecting anything from it, right? Like we just assumed we were gonna watch it and maybe have fun with it, maybe not. Um, I've got kind of a hot take. I really liked it. I thought it was a really good film. Um, Honestly, like I thought they did a really good job just translating Uncharted into movie form. I really liked Tom Holland as Nate by the end of the film. Um, I think my major worry with him going in was the whole Spider-Man thing, and the trailers made it almost kind of like he was doing a lot of his Spider-Man like mannerisms and stuff in the film. But honestly, there's not much of that in there. Um, I think there's one line of dialogue which is in the clip they showed where he's in the plane, right? And at the very start when he kicks the guy off the box, he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." I think that's like the first line of the film, and like that line is the only one that kind of stood out to me as being really weird. But other than that, I really liked him as Nate. I still don't like Mark Wahlberg as Sully. The movie did not change that for me. I think he's the weakest part of the whole film. I really liked the woman who's playing Elena. I can't think what
You mean
the
Chloe?
actress's name is. Or yeah, Chloe. Sorry,
I was gonna say unless
Elena.
you spoiled the ending.
Yeah, no, I can tell you Elena's not in it. But
Okay.
yeah, no, the woman playing Chloe, she was really good. Um, like I wasn't too sure like how she would do from the trailers because she wasn't in them too much, but
So you
I
see her as
liked her
Chloe by
role
the
in
end of
it.
the movie?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Do you see her as like Chloe by the end of the movie?
Yeah,
Like,
I
she,
mean like she's very much like Chloe throughout the whole film. I think the only like character out of the three that is just not that character to me is Mark Wahlberg because he's
yeah,
not trying to be Sully in any way.
yeah.
Like Tom Holland and I think it's Sophia something.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of those actors, like they're clearly trying to be the game characters, right? They do things here and there that are their own take, but overall you can see the kind of like origins of that character. But Sully, I just didn't get that at all. Even by the end of the film, like I just didn't see it at all. But overall, I enjoyed it. I really liked the set pieces, both the ones they take from the games and then also the bigger one they have towards the end that is just for the film. I think was like I could easily see it being in an Uncharted game, and it's choreographed great. I think all the fights in the film are actually really well choreographed and just give off an Uncharted vibe the whole time. Um, but yeah, it's a weird one because I think most of like the sort of professional reviews are really down on the film, but then all of like the fan reviews and stuff seem to be actually pretty positive. So I'd say people should go out and see it. Just kind of judge it for yourself. Like I can see people being mixed either way. I was just on the more positive side of things. Um, I hope it does well because I would honestly like to see them do another film and potentially more. They do set it up to do more films as you'd expect. So I hope we get to see more. But hopefully you'll get to see it relatively soon, Brandon, and then we can talk like spoilers and stuff. There's not a ton to spoil, but there's a few things I'd want to talk about that I'm not going to here because it's obviously just come out. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the film. So
I'm contemplating it. Like it's one of those things where I could literally go see it like tonight or this weekend if I wanted to. It's just like I don't know. There's no one here I'd really want to go see with because like most of the people that know Uncharted aren't here at uni. They're like everyone is
yeah,
like pretty much back in my home city. So like I could see it by myself, which I don't mind seeing movies by myself, but I could also just wait a month and see it with some friends. But we'll see. I'll let you know what I end up doing.
yeah,
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Based on everything you said and everything I've seen, it looks pretty interesting. I know Dan, Josh, and Declan, UK friends of the show, they've all seen it, and I think like overall the average is like mixed and somewhere between mixed and positive. Like it's not bad. Like this movie is being reviewed generally pretty positive compared to other video game movies by fans, which is cool to see. Yeah, the same thing. Like Mark Wahlberg is definitely not trying to be Mark Wahlberg. Obviously, you see any scene with him, and he's like, it doesn't even seem like young Sully, because there is young Sully in Uncharted 3, and it's nothing like the asshole that's
yeah.
portrayed as Mark Wahlberg. Um, the one I know, I did see that one clip at the beginning where Nate's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." That does seem a little bit odd, but there is that one scene in Uncharted 3 when he's like a little kid, and like those like bodyguard suit guards come after him, and he like throws one of them off the building, and he has like that reaction of like, "Oh shit, I threw someone off the building," and he's like, "Sorry."
Mm.
So I could see maybe they took inspiration from that scene, but it's a weird film because it seems like they're pulling from like Uncharted 3, Uncharted 4, Uncharted like I guess 2 with Chloe. It's like all over the place. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it and seeing the kind of direction they go in because yeah, you're right. I've only seen like obviously Nate as portrayed in the trailers, right? So if there's something more to it that Tom Holland brings, that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I do want to go see this movie eventually. I'll let you know what I end up doing. But yeah, I guess that moves on to the releases this week. A little indie game called Horizon Forbidden West came out for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Obviously joking. It's gotten really positive reviews. I think like the average is like 92 on Metacritic, 91, somewhere along that. It's very, very highly rated. The general census I've seen is just the fact that it's like exactly like the first game, but like a lot of the areas that were like kind of like keeping the game, essentially keeping the game down with like human combat and climbing have been fixed. So like I know you can now scan the environments as we saw by the state of play to like see where you could easily climb. There's now a glider, which is kind of like a direct nudge to Breath of the Wild, a game that came out directly alongside the original game. And then yeah, just the game overall just took like the cons of the first game and kind of addressed those. Yeah, I was talking to Charlie before this, and I have seen like gameplay of it because I was watching a friend play it earlier. It does look really similar to the first game, so I'm now contemplating whether I want to replay the first game before going into two because it might be better just to get a story recap and then just start playing Forbidden West. This would obviously be after Elden Ring because even if I bought it this weekend, I wouldn't be touching it like anywhere past Friday of next week. So yeah, we'll see what I end up doing. But I guess that brings it into the gaming news over the last 2 weeks or so, and we did get a Nintendo Direct in that time frame, which is pretty nice. Kind of forgot that this is like the usual time frame that Nintendo does these things, so I was surprised to see that tweet. But yeah, I mean, the Direct's out now, so we'll talk about what was revealed in that. I'd say it's a pretty solid Direct. There's definitely some pretty big announcements and a lot of like Nintendo moments where it's like, are they really doing that? Like, why now of all things? So I guess I'll go over some of the big ones. So Switch Sports is probably like a big headline you saw because they did announce finally the spiritual, or I guess the spiritual successor of Wii Sports. Obviously the fabled launch title for the Wii. We, they are charging $40 for it, which is kind of annoying, but obviously it's not a launch title with the Switch, so they kind of have to charge. They did show off a bit of gameplay with like tennis and stuff like that, and it looked pretty good. I'm hoping this game plays like as well as I remember as a kid. Obviously, nostalgia is a very you know existent thing, so I'm kind of worried I'll like buy Switch Sports and I'll be like, this is trash compared to what I remember as a kid. But I'm going in hopeful. I think it's coming out literally in 2 months in April, which is crazy. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight. Like I was telling like my friends, I was like, that's like the smartest thing Nintendo has done in a while. It's like make a sequel to a game that has like sold 100 million copies. Everyone loved Wii Sports. Obviously, it was a pack and launch title, so people weren't like actually buying it, but like everyone loved that. As back in like the late 2000s, it's like that's easy money on the table, and they finally did that. Other news stories come in the form of Xenoblade 3. That was a big one for JRPG fans. They announced that they're like doubling Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's content, which is crazy. I found this weird for two reasons. One, it's like 5 years since Deluxe came out, so like why are you adding tracks now? And two, like there's recently been rumors of Mario Kart 9, and like whenever they talked about Mario Kart, I was like, oh, they're just gonna like segue into Mario Kart 9. But no, like yeah, they're focusing on support for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which makes sense because the game still does sell extremely well. But just another Nintendo moment where they're doing DLC like 5 years after the game came out. um, Besides that, I'm like struggling to forget some of the other news stories, but they announced some stuff for like the online service. Yoshi, or no, Kirby got a new trailer for its new 3D Kirby game. Am I forgetting anything else, Charlie, that they announced? I know Portal's coming to Switch, which is really, really cool. I think that's the first, Valve game that's uh, come to the Switch. But yeah, pretty big announcements. What were your thoughts on the overall direct and your seemingly hot take on Switch Sports?
So, I mean, I thought the direct was pretty decent. I think it started off a lot stronger and then slowly declined, but I think that was just like I preferred the stuff in the first half. Like, I think Xenoblade 3 going in was like my just I knew that was probably gonna happen as like their end game. Mainly just because it's been known that it's been in development for ages. I think the developers have been pretty open about that they were working on a new one, so that made a lot of sense. Um, I was kind of disappointed about the Splatoon 3 stuff. I kind of wanted to see a bit more, or at least get a date. But no date here. They just kind of showed off the co-op stuff, which I hope is good, but honestly, that was like the most forgettable mode in the second one, so
Oh, I
I
forgot they
hope we
did
get.
announce Strikers too as well. That
Yeah,
was a
so
big
they
one.
announced the new Strikers game, which is cool. My mate Tyler was super excited about that because he loved the one back on Wii,
Same.
which was like, I don't know, like 15 years ago now, something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
been a while.
So yeah, that's cool to see. I think that's in June, right? So that's pretty close. Um, Switch Sports was a big announcement. I'm like kind of mixed on it for a couple of reasons. One, you already mentioned it. It's $40, which I think is a big mistake on Nintendo's part. I mean, it'll sell. It's Nintendo. I don't like that the Mii's are in the game, but yet they still have these really weird new avatars. Like, why did they exist? I don't understand who at Nintendo thought they were a good idea. To the point where they then got like people from Nintendo on stage, right, to play it, and they're using the classic Mii's. So clearly even they know that they suck because they chose to use the old Mii's. So I don't know why they didn't just have those instead, for whatever. Um Also, I don't like that they've cut stuff out. Like, they're cutting out golf and adding it as a free update later. I was like, this just feels like it's early access to me anyway. I feel like they're just basically charging you for a game that isn't finished, and then they're just gonna add it later. Which Nintendo seem to be doing more and more, like, recently. Like, Pokemon started doing that, and now this, and I'm kind of like, I don't like the direction Nintendo are going with that stuff, so um, that I'm not a fan of. So yeah, there's less sports than I think both Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, so that's kind of odd. But I mean, it still looks fun. They've got a playtest thing going on this weekend, so I'll give it a go.
That's right.
And see what it's like. It's weird though because you can't just download it. You have to like go to the site and redeem a code with like
That is weird.
0 platinum points or whatever. Like, it doesn't cost anything, but you have to redeem it to download it. It's super
Nintendo,
weird.
what the heck?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll probably give it a go. I think I'm gonna take my Switch into work tomorrow, and then I'll just play it with people at work.
Oh,
So,
nice.
like, yeah, I don't know. It looks okay, but I think it could have been done better. The Mario Kart stuff is like really weird to me because like
Right?
it's cool that adding so many tracks. I think once all the packs are out, there's going to be like 40, 50 new tracks, or I guess 40, 50 old tracks coming back. But like they said by the end of 2023. So that means if Mario Kart 9 is happening, it's not
Not
going to
until
happen for at
2024.
least 2024, yeah.
That makes
Um,
sense though, because deluxe sells like crazy. When I worked retail, like people
yeah.
bought deluxe more than they bought like any other game. Like it's probably
The
the most sold. Like I don't know, alongside the big giants like Smash and stuff.
The only thing that like I find weird about it is because obviously they're charging I think like $30 for it, which is a lot. But then they then go, oh, but if you have Switch Online plus the expansion pack thing, you get it for free. And they did this with the Animal Crossing expansion as well, which a lot of people were not happy they were doing a paid expansion, which almost makes me feel like Nintendo have started making these purely because they want to try and increase the value of that expansion pack thing because of the backlash. Like, almost like, hey, we've got this Mario Kart DLC, we should charge for it and then bundle it in for free with this thing
Isn't
because
it?
then
Is it with the like basic plan or is it like the pro
no, so it's
membership that
the
you need?
expansion pack one. So the one that's
Oh my
like
God, yeah, the one
30
that no one
bucks more,
likes.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
crazy.
So that's my point is like I feel like they almost do it on purpose at this point because they want more people to subscribe to this plan that nobody wants. Um so yeah, I think it's a good business decision on their end, but it's also kind of scummy. So but I did see that apparently if you like play it locally, like connected up to multiple switches or online with friends, only one of you needs to own the DLC to play the tracks. So I guess it's literally just like Payday or like Left 4 Dead, where, or not Left 4 Dead, but like those kind of games where only one of you needs to own the DLC and then all of you have the update already. It's literally just a license key that allows you to play the maps, right? So yeah, I guess that's kind of cool, but also kind of annoying at the same time because you'll all have it installed. It's just you don't have access to it. But I think the first pack for that is out like April, I think, and then yeah, I think they're doing like 4 or 5 packs over the next like year and a half. So um, yeah, I think other than that, there wasn't too much else there that interests me. Those were kind of like the main things. And the new trailer for Kirby looked kind of cool. I'm not a Kirby person, but that game
Same.
looks pretty good to be fair. So
Yeah, what that Kirby game reminds me of like 27 or 26, no, 2017 Switch first year when like
yeah,
each game from Nintendo got like a really big release. Like obviously Zelda got Breath of the Wild and Mario got Mario Odyssey and like Splatoon was bigger than it's ever been before. And then ever since they kind of went back to just doing like odd sequels where it's just like good games but like nothing like crazy like that first year. Kirby looks like they're trying to like actually bring the franchise back or get more people into it, because like obviously there was like that one Kirby game that came out like near the first 2 years of the Switch, which looked like a generic side scroller, right? But this one looks like they're actually trying like new things with it. It looks like Mario Odyssey level almost. close to that, which is crazy. But yeah, my thoughts on the director are pretty much the same. I didn't really have like huge expectations going in, to be honest, because now that I got SMT5, it's like the main thing I'm looking forward to is Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid, like anything Metroid related, which we didn't see anything for those two. So I'm guessing we got to wait till the E3 Direct or quote unquote E3 Direct. But yeah, overall pretty solid. I'm happy about Strikers 2. I'm happy about Switch Sports. Do you know by the way if the Switch Sports demo is like are they doing the same like 1 hour increments of time, or is it like
I think
this
so.
whole entire weekend? Oh,
Yeah,
that's annoying.
I think there's like hour sessions, like 3 on each day or something on Saturday and
Elden
Sunday.
Ring and Nintendo do that. I don't know if it's like a Japanese thing, but it's annoying when they do like 1 hour like blocks of times.
I guess the idea is to stress test the servers, right? Because
Yeah,
if
and
you
they
get
don't want the full
everyone
weekend.
jumping on at the same time, then it maximizes your player count to see like
Hmm.
how your servers are gonna hold up. I guess
Yeah,
that's the idea behind it.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it makes sense. I guess I'll definitely check out Switch Sports this weekend. I definitely want to try it out and see how it plays. So I think that'd probably be the first time I use the Joy Cons for motion controls because I never like played Ring Fit or like anything like One Two
Did you
Switch
play
related.
Arms?
I didn't play Arms actually. I don't know. I
Okay.
was I
Arms
was
is great.
debating on that one. Yeah, Arms I heard is underrated like hell for a new IP. Riff. I don't think anything's gonna happen to Arms. Do you think we'll get an
Probably
Arms
not.
2 ever?
We get
Yeah,
legs.
probably
That's the
not.
sequel.
Oh
We got the
god,
leg
never.
strap now. It can happen.
That is true. That is true. Anyways, we'll move on to our second news story, and this comes from a new studio actually, which is pretty exciting. Essentially, the big person behind it is the ex Witcher 3 director. Yeah, he's the one that's like leading this whole thing. There's a lot of people on this team that have been working on previous RPGs from CD Projekt Red, so obviously like Cyberpunk and Witcher 3. They're called Rebel Wolves, and currently they're developing a dark fantasy RPG using Unreal Engine 5. So pretty exciting stuff. I wonder if they decide to form after the fall of like Cyberpunk 2077. I kind of imagine probably. I know like a lot of people left like leading into that game's release or something like that based on some of the reports we got. So yeah, cool to see another studio form up, right? Like it's nice to see more teams around, and I don't know. I always find that pretty exciting myself. What'd you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, I think the director who's running the company, I think he resigned last year because basically there was like some allegations against him. So I don't I don't really
Oh,
know. Like I didn't
jeez.
read too much into it, but I think he resigned, and then it was probably a mix of that, and then also like I don't want to work on Cyberpunk or Witcher anymore. I want to make something new. So yeah, I mean I'm interested in it. I really like Witcher 3, and obviously I even really like Cyberpunk. So dark fantasy RPG sounds cool to me, and next gen. So it'll be interesting to see how like far away this is, right? Like I imagine it's at least sort of 3 years, maybe more, depending on how big their team ends up being, and how like big a scope they have for it. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how this turns out.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to seeing what they do. That's exciting. Anyways, No Man's Sky got another update this week. Always nice to see these things come out. And this one actually pretty excites me because they're revamping the combat with this one, which I think has long been a weakness of No Man's Sky. Not like combat was always like a focus part of the No Man's Sky experience, but a lot of times you'd always have like enemies picking fights with you, which was like something that you didn't really have any control over. And when you did eventually get into combat with them, yeah, the combat wasn't itself anything like crazy about it. Don't know really too much like specifics about this update, but I know that they said even after this update that they're planning on supporting the game even more, which is really cool to see. I wonder when Hello Games would stop working on No Man's Sky. I wonder. I mean, obviously they're doing it because obviously they want good credibility of their name, but I'm sure they also fostered like a really good fan base that they like care about, right? So now I wonder what the future of No Man's Sky looks like after you know. Do you think we'll get a No Man's Sky 2 eventually, or do you think they're just gonna keep updating this game and see where it happens?
I feel like they just keep updating it because I mean it still sells really well. I think so. It's just like
Yeah.
why would they ever not do something? I think because they're not a big team either, so I imagine there's a lot of risk to put out a ambitious title again because you just don't know how it's gonna turn out. Like I imagine they just want to keep making stuff for No Man's Sky until eventually it dies off and they can make something new. I mean, they did put out like that small indie game that was made by I think two
Little
people on the
campfire.
team. Yeah, something like that. But like that was only made by a few people on the team as like a passion project, so it's not like they had the whole team working on that, right? So I think their main focus is still No Man's Sky, and it'll probably stick to being that until they need to do something else, right? So
Definitely makes sense. If you have like a big name like that as an indie developer with No Man's Sky, you don't really want to drop that because that's like such a big, pull. Yeah, it makes sense. Anyways, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen online, Cyberpunk 1.5, essentially the next gen update, finally dropped this week. Essentially, they announced, like, I think 2 days before they should have dropped this, like, they're doing a CD Projekt Red live stream. It was kind of obvious. I mean, we even talked about it on like Critically Incorrect 2 weeks ago that it was like uploaded to the PSN database, and I think even like Xbox started leaking some stuff early, like the day before. And sure enough, they went live, showed off the new update, and essentially said it's out now for the next gen consoles. And PC also got 1.5, but obviously it's nothing to the scale that we saw with consoles because they needed it the most, and that's where you see the most big improvements. I've actually had some friends start up the game, and they're all saying pretty positive things. The game's actually running really well. I think there's like a performance mode which you get like 60 FPS, or you can go to 4K. No, or you can get ray tracing, which brings it down to 30. But overall, it seems pretty impressive. Crowds were fixed. I think that was like the big one. So yeah, now crowds are actually spawning, so the world seemed a little less dead, right? Yeah, overall, pretty solid update. I haven't jumped into it yet on PC, but I did download it on Steam, so I do want to go back in because I know they added things like new apartments, which I think is huge. That adds to the RPG nature, obviously, and things like I think like even new romance options or something like that as well. So yeah, some pretty big RPG elements added in. And yeah, what'd you think about the 1.5 next gen patch, Charlie?
yeah, I mean they've added a lot of stuff. I did have a quick look at it after I downloaded it, um, but I didn't play a ton, and it was mainly due to the fact that they've like overhauled all of the skills and stuff. So basically, they changed how a lot of the skills work. So they refunded everyone's skill points.
Oh,
So when you open up the game now, if you're like me and have like done everything in the game, you'll have max level and like all your skills. And so all of them are now, I've just got my skill points again, and I have to like reassign them. And I just couldn't be bothered to sit there for like 20 minutes and just like figure out what all the skills are now because they have all been changed. Um, so that kind of put me off playing it, to be honest, because I was like, I just can't be bothered to like do all this again. It was the same with like the mods that you put on like your weapons and stuff. Like they all get removed because they've changed them again.
oh
Um,
yeah.
but they have also added like new weapons. They've added like muzzle brakes and stuff. So you can like affect recoil and stuff on your weapons now. Although I never really like remember the recoil being weird in Cyberpunk, so I don't think there's much of a need for that. And I think they added like weapon scopes as well, that you can attach on weapons now, which is pretty cool. But yeah, overall, really cool update. I will say when I first booted it up, I did also immediately see like cops chasing people down a street like in a car,
Oh wow.
and there was a
Okay.
shootout. So I was like, that's immediately a massive improvement that there's stuff going
Yeah.
on. Although I did then also, because I saw they apparently changed like crowd interactions with like if you shoot them and stuff, and like pathing for car crashes and things. I immediately turned around and tried to shoot somebody because I was like, I want to see how the police react. And unfortunately, that is still not the best. So when you shoot somebody, they send out a little like police drone thing, and then if you shoot the police drone, some cops will spawn down the street, and then they run up the street, which I'm still not a fan of. I really hope they do revamp that so it's much more like GTA where they spawn a car a couple blocks down the street, right? And then a car drives up and they'll try and stop you and things. I think that system still needs a lot of work. So I'd like to see them do that. And the next big update is actually kind of revamp the entire system for like police and just infamy and that kind of thing. Because that I think is still a weak spot when it comes to the kind of sandboxy nature of the game because like it hasn't really got much of a sandbox when it comes to the open world. So I hope they try and kind of delve more into that aspect of it. But overall, yeah, the update seems great. Um, I do want to play through it again at some point, but I might wait until there's a down spot in the year where there's just not much to play, and I might pick it up on PlayStation because I know it's running well on console now. I might just buy like a PS4 copy and get the upgrade because it's pretty cheap to get hold of on console
They have a
now.
trial right now if you want to
Um,
try it out as well.
and there, yeah, there is the trial for like 5 hours, right? So maybe I'll give it a go. Um, just at some point and have a quick look because yeah I might end up just playing on there and then get like trophies and stuff and then that might be where I end up playing it when like the DLC comes out but we'll see because yeah I imagine that's going to be their big focus now that they've got this update out is I think a lot of the team had already moved on to the first expansion but I imagine that's kind of their next milestone so hopefully we see something to do with that around the summertime but who knows how far away that is. I know they're not working on the Witcher 3 update. That is a like another
Separate
studio
studio,
doing that.
yeah.
So yeah, they're basically all hands on deck on Cyberpunk DLC now. But hopefully they keep going with the updates. I mean, it's definitely on the right course now, right? They just need to keep up this momentum, and I think it's going to work out well for them. I think this has put them in a pretty good light for a lot more people now, with more people jumping in and realizing it's actually a pretty good game under all the bugs and
I
polish that
know.
it needed originally. So yeah.
Who would have known that? Yeah. Nice to see people finally enjoying the game. Yeah, it's weird. It's like such a weird game because like, obviously you play games and you feel like like the general like reception of it because like you've beaten a game and everyone else has beaten it and like you there's just that solid understanding. But then like after I beat Cyberpunk, it's like anywhere I see that game mentioned, no one talks about the story or like the characters. It's all about the bugs. So it's like almost like weird to have people finally jumping in and now being able to experience the story on a larger scale than that launch was. So nice to see that. But we'll move on. Anyways, Halo TV series got renewed for season two. I believe Halo season one hasn't even dropped yet, so I'm guessing the studio has seen episodes early, obviously, and are confident in the series enough to greenlight a season two. I believe this is done by Paramount, which have been making a lot of big moves lately. I think this was like one announcement out of like many. I think they're doing like a Knuckles TV show as well or something like that. So yeah, big moves over there. What'd you think about that, Charlie? Are you excited for this Halo season?
I'm kind of like iffy on it because I think visually it looks great. Like I think the designs of like the armor and the ships, and just the characters and like aliens overall, I think it looks great. But I did not like the sound of like Master Chief's voice, mainly because like they brought back the voice actress for Cortana, so I'm like, why couldn't you have just done that for Master Chief? Just bring back the voice actor because he's like, I mean, he probably is gonna take off his helmet in the show, but I mean, like, he never does
You
in the
think so?
game, right? Yeah, I think he probably
Yeah.
will, mainly because they made a big deal when they hired the actor behind him. So I imagine the actor was probably like, yeah, if I'm gonna be in this show, I want people to see my face. Um, so I feel like he'll probably take off the helmet at least at the end of the show or something. Um, but yeah, I hope it's good. I'll give it a watch when it comes out. I don't know how it's releasing in the UK, because we don't have Paramount Plus over here. So I don't know whether it will be on another streaming service or on TV or something. But I definitely want to give it a go when it does come out. But it being renewed is always a good sign for stuff like this. But it might also just be that, Halo's a big name. They expect that it's going to do well enough that they'll want to renew it anyway. But hopefully, it does mean that they're confident in the quality of the show and not just the name.
Yeah, that's true. 2022, the year we finally see Uncharted and Halo
Yeah.
hit, different mediums. It's kind of wild. And speaking of games hitting different mediums, Netflix announced that they're working on a Bioshock movie. Currently, that's the only details we know. Like, there's really no name attached to it, no details. I mean, obviously, you'd assume probably it's going to be based on the first game. That seems to be the game that, is widely, adored by fans. I mean, Bioshock Infinite is as well, but I think even Netflix put in the image of Bioshock 1. So, yeah, this is definitely the first game. I was talking about this in the server a bit. I definitely think this is a good idea. Bioshock is a very political game, very story oriented and about the times. And different cultures that was going on around that different that era and like what could have been. Obviously it's essentially just like an alternate future where you know Earth could have been a lot darker, right? I definitely want to see Bioshock in a movie format. Just seeing the world of Rapture would be super cool. I would like it to be R-rated though. I was seeing some concerns that they'd make it like a thriller or something like that. But there's a lot of gruesome details to the Bioshock story and that world that I think you can only get with an R-rated. So, yeah, consider me excited for it. I think it's honestly has a lot going for it because it's not like Tomb Raider or Resident Evil where there's like a lot of like established characters in this film. Like you can't really kind of screw up the main character because like the main character in the game is like, yeah, sure he has like identity, right? But it's mainly like you're filling in the shoes of the player, right? So I think honestly this is a really good choice for a video game adaptation. What'd you think about that, Charlie?
So I'm kind of the opposite to you. I'm
Yeah,
like I'm not really like on board with this, and it's mainly for one reason. I don't want to like go into details of it because I mean it's an old game, but there's probably still people
talking
that
about
haven't played it. But
story
like
spoilers, all that. Yeah,
yeah, so the main like twist in that game is so in like it's a really good twist, but it's so
for a
integral
game, it's a
to
good it being a
yeah,
game.
and it's
Yeah,
it's so integral to the player interacting with stuff that I don't know how well that'll come across in a show that you're watching. I think it still will hit quite well. Um and I'd love to see the world of like Rapture and stuff in a show. I just don't know. I just don't think it'll hit the same as it does in the game because it is such a good twist, and I don't think they'll be able to do it in the same way in the show or as effectively. Um, or the movie, sorry, because it's a film, not a show.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how it turns out. The thing is, they were planning to do a film way back before Bioshock 2 released.
Hmm.
So like a movie about Bioshock has been on in the pipelines, two or take two, I guess, so, for a long time. Um, so I hope it ends up being cool, but I'm not that excited about it just because personally I'm not as interested in seeing it just because Bioshock to me is just something that is very integral to being played and I don't think it'll have the same uh like impact as being a film. I think like Infinite would work a lot better as a movie um than Bioshock 1, but I think all of them kind of have that theme of like the interactivity. Like it is very much about
Making
play
choices and all that. Yeah.
like player choice and agency, and that's very much a big part of those games when it comes to like how they deal with the powers and the characters and stuff like so yeah, I don't know, I'm interested to see how it turns out and how they develop it, but yeah, personally I'm not as excited as you are, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
I think the world and the twist will come across pretty good, but I definitely think everything with like the power ups and like gameplay aspects, it'll be kind of weird to see the main protagonist just have like a fire hand
Yeah.
and just like launching fireballs out of his hand, which is a little bit weird. But I don't know. I would love to see Rapture in like a live action setting, but we'll see. Obviously, even if it does come out, not gonna affect the games anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, a cool news story that we got last week had to do with The Wolf Among Us 2. Essentially, they just had a big showcase for it. That was like 20 minutes long, showed off in a trailer, a bunch of interviews, hosted by Jeff Keighley. Got a date for it, 2023. New trailer looks pretty cool. Yeah, just cool to see actual footage because that original trailer that we got, I think, like over a year or two ago at the Game Awards was literally just, probably Telltale just, you know, like in pre-production saying, okay, we're gonna solidify that we're gonna work on The Wolf Among Us 2, and then came up with some kind of mock trailer to show at the Game Awards. But this is like the first time where we're getting like a trailer that's actually gonna be, somewhat relevant to what we play next year. So yeah, I saw the trailer, looked pretty cool. Interviews looked pretty interesting. They're obviously very excited to go back to it. It's going to be using obviously Unreal Engine, which is very different from what the past Telltale games were. So hopefully that will mean the games, obviously are just improved or better. Based on the interviews, it seems like they're obviously still trying to stick to the normal, Telltale format. So they're not really going to be doing anything crazy with gameplay. It's going to still be mainly, the choices that you make in dialogue. But yeah, What'd you think about that, Charlie? You saw the trailer, I think.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I loved the first Wolf Among Us, but I have been very like skeptical about this, mainly just because of how like
It's
the
a new
develop
Telltale.
the developer was formed, right? Because at
Hmm.
first there wasn't anybody from Telltale on board. They just bought the name basically, um, and the rights to Wolf Among Us. So I was kind of just like very iffy at first. Seeing this trailer and like seeing the interview, it does give me a bit more hope. And obviously they have got a lot more of the ex Telltale staff on board now. But there was that weird thing last year where we were hearing like they wanted to hire ex staff but weren't gonna offer them any like contracts or anything. So they didn't know when or if they would get paid for a lot of the stuff, which was really weird. So um, like I hope it turns out really well and that it's a good game and that everyone on the team is being treated well. But it is very hard like to see this stuff because it's such a weird like situation that the game and like the studio's in, right? Because it's Telltale, but at the same time it's not Telltale. So yeah, I hope it's really good. Like I said, I love the first game. It's my favorite of. Well, I say it's my favorite. It's up there as one of my favorite of the Telltale games. I think Borderlands probably is my favorite of all of them, but Wolf Among Us is definitely up there. So um, I'm excited to see how it turns out. I think it's been long enough since I've played one of those kind of games that I'll be okay with the gameplay style of it because I think I started to get burnt out on a lot of Telltale stuff towards the end. So like with Batman and Guardians and stuff. So hopefully it's been long enough now that if I was going to play it, the gameplay wouldn't be too big a deal for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's one of the better series for sure. I think the Wolf Among Us original game, alongside Tales of the Borderlands and probably The Walking Dead season one, are like my three favorite Telltale games. I'd say.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm looking forward to the sequel. The world of The Wolf Among Us is just so good. It's a lot more mature than a lot of their IPs. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. The gameplay is a little bit weird for me, just because like I don't know. Even playing Detroit Become Human, I was getting bored. It's just if I can't like really like have a lot of cadence and know my actions, I get bored easily. So I wonder if I'll be able to play through The Wolf Among Us 2 like very easily. I mean, either way, I'll just play it when I'm in the mood to watch something, right? I'll just boot it up and just treat it like an anime or a TV show, right? So yeah, looking forward to that coming out next year. And we'll move on. Anyways, essentially the Uncharted director that obviously just directed the one that just came out essentially is working with PlayStation on adapting Jak and Daxter. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Interestingly enough, Tom Holland, like during his tour of like the Uncharted press tour, mentioned like his favorite game as a kid was Jak and Daxter, so there might be some sort of link here. It'd be kind of weird to see Tom Holland play as Jack, especially after playing Nate. So I don't think it will happen, and I also don't hope it will happen. But pretty interesting. Charlie, have they said if it's going to be like a live action? Well, I'm guessing if it's the Uncharted director, it will be live action. But uh,
I
yeah,
imagine it would be live action if this goes anywhere. I kind of hope it doesn't because I just don't see
I
Jak and
don't.
Daxter
Yeah,
in live action being done well.
yeah.
But I do find it funny that with Tom mentioning it, if Tom's just gonna be like Sony's poster boy for everything PlayStation,
Oh
like
my
he's
god.
gonna show up in the Last of Us show, and then he's gonna be in Twisted Metal or something. Like
Speaking of the
he's just
Last of
gonna
Us
be in
show, we didn't
everything.
have this as a news story, but that was
This is true,
also
yeah,
delayed to 2023. So yeah, glad you mentioned that.
yeah,
Kind of sad about that because I thought that would have been a perfect like October release.
yeah. I know
Uh,
it's a weird one. Like
yeah,
I
because
think everyone thought
spring.
it was this year, but I guess it's just they're still filming it right now, and they just don't expect it to release this year. So fair enough.
Yeah, I wonder how long the post process takes for that kind of thing.
Mm,
Obviously, it's HBO, so they're gonna put a lot of effort into it.
yeah.
That's pretty exciting. 2023 will be a pretty exciting year for TV shows. We got the Uncharted, or not the Uncharted, the Last of Us TV show, and also the One Piece I think TV show coming next year
Okay.
from Netflix. So that'll be cool. Uh, yeah, interesting stuff. But going back to Jak and Daxter, yeah, I agree. I definitely don't think live action suits it at all. Jak and Daxter is just so goofy that it'd be so weird to see in live action. Like, I don't know how you do Daxter at all in live
Yeah,
action and how they
exactly.
pulled it off. Like, that just seems like, why would you do that when there's so many other IP you could touch? Um, obviously
Also,
like God of War or something. I don't know.
I just don't know what Sony's fascination is with Ruben Fleischer or however you say his name, like the
Uh huh.
director. Like, because he
I
did
don't know.
Zombieland, which was a good film, and then he did Venom, which was Venom, and then he's done Uncharted. And whilst I liked the film overall, I don't think the best bit was his directing. So I just
Yeah.
don't know why Sony seem to have this thing for using him for a lot of their like IPs. It's really
Because
weird.
everyone else leaves before it's too late.
Yeah,
But he
I guess
doesn't. I
so,
don't know.
right? I guess so. I don't
Aren't
know.
they doing
I
a Ghost of Tsushima movie as well?
So yeah, they're doing a Ghost of Tsushima movie that's being
That one actually
directed
has a good
by
name behind it. It's like
yeah.
the
So
guy
that's
that
the
did.
guy who did John Wick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if they don't get Daisuke Tsuji to play
Oh yeah.
um the
They
main
need him.
guy, then
They need him.
it's not gonna work because literally he does the voice and he did the motion capture and they used his
Yeah.
face. So like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you use him in the main role? It would make
Yeah.
no
The only thing I
sense.
could think of is the stunts. Like if he's not obviously coordinated with
I
that, but
know
like just have
he
a.
has done a bit of training with like
Okay. Then they
swords and
definitely
stuff
should
because
bring
he
him.
did a video
Yeah.
on YouTube of him like training with stuff. So yeah, I'd like to see him do the film. I think that'd be awesome.
If they don't get
Um,
him for the film, that'd be dumb.
but yeah, I don't know. Actually, talking about like the films and stuff, did you see like their new intro for that stuff?
Oh
They
yeah,
did
the
post it on
PlayStation
like Twitter.
Productions interview. Yeah, I
Yeah,
did see that. That was seemed pretty
cause like
cool.
I saw the film and then they posted it on Twitter like that day. But yeah, that's like a cool little intro thing. I will point out as well, Astrobot has like a good amount of screen time in that intro, which is pretty cool. Like he's like front
Astro,
and center
yeah,
for a bit. So I'm like, if they give me like an Astrobot
same.
animated movie, like I'm on board. Although they do also
Yeah,
show like Ratchet and Sackboy and stuff, so I think it's just all their big
yeah.
mascots. But to see Astrobot up there is really cool.
You see his eyes glow up for like a solid amount of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, Astrobot's an underrated like mascot of PlayStation. Just I don't think he has a game that came out that wasn't good. Besides like Playroom 2013, that was like boring
But
as
even
hell.
his levels in that were pretty cool. Like
No, I'm
the
talking about
level.
Playroom 2013, like the PS4 camera,
Oh,
where
the
all you
camera
did was
one,
like
not the VR
fling your
one.
arms around, yeah, and the little robots ran around. Yeah. No, the VR one was cool. The demos were really neat. That's what inspired like them to like devolve,
Yeah.
like go further into the platformer one, because everyone loved that one. Yeah. Uh, I wonder what they'll do next. I mean, we don't have to wonder. They've already given us like Ghost of Tsushima, Twisted Metal, and now apparently Jak and Daxter. I don't know why they're so focused on like going into different mediums that are not games. I mean, I guess they want to grow the IP, right? But it's just like I don't know. They seem so fascinated to bring up like any
I
adaptation they can. Like even Twisted Metal's an odd one because like why would you do that of
I
all
mean,
ones?
I
Like that's
guess
such a
it's
dead
just
franchise.
for
Yeah,
Sony, it's probably a logical move because their other biggest department aside from
is Sony
games
moves, Sony films.
is
Yeah,
like the just the film side, right? So like
yeah,
if they're able to like use those films to bolster their games industry side of things, then it's just a win-win for them because they make money off the film and then they make money from people who go out and buy a console and buy the game. So like I get it, it's a really good business decision and if the stuff works then that's cool. Like I imagine they will probably sell even more copies of Uncharted and PS4s and PS5s after people go and see the film, right? And vice versa. Like the film was probably doing really well because people got
because of the
that free
games.
ticket, right?
Yeah.
Um, like
Has it been selling well, by the way?
I think it's been doing pretty well. I know over here it was beating out like all the other films that opened that same weekend.
Oh,
I think
nice.
the new like Poirot film, like I don't know which one it is.
I mean,
Like
granted, it is February, so I don't know how many big movies are
yeah,
coming
it's
out
like
right
Death
now,
on the
but
Nile or something. I think is the other big film this month, and that opened in like nearly triple the amount of countries that Uncharted did, but made a hell of a lot less money. So
hmm
I think that's a good sign for Uncharted. I don't know what Sony's expectations are for the film though, so I
that is
think
true
that'll be
though.
kind of
Yeah,
dependent
because if they're
how
expecting
high
like
that
summer
is.
numbers, that's gonna be
Um,
hard.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see where the box office is at, like after this weekend for you guys, because I mean, that'll probably be domestic openings is going to be
Maybe
a
I should
big
go
thing.
watch it and
So
help it out.
yeah, maybe. But I mean, like,
Yeah,
I think another reason why it's done so well is like, there was a hell of a lot of kids watching the film, like
yeah,
surprisingly a lot of kids, and I think it's just because Tom Holland's in it, like, because they've advertised it a lot over here, and I think it's just kids seeing ads Spider-Man. Basically, they're like, oh my god, it's
Hmm.
Spider-Man, but he's shooting a gun. So they're just
Oh
like,
my
I want to
god, that's a
watch
great
this.
quote. Yeah,
So,
it's
um, but yeah, there was a lot of kids in the screening I went and saw, which was surprising. But I mean, the films are 12, so I guess makes sense. Like kids can go and see it technically. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, look forward to seeing that movie. And yeah, we'll move on to uh, more Uncharted. Essentially, Jeff Ross from the Days Gone director said that he wants to make, or he wanted to make an Uncharted prequel, Young Sully. I don't know if this was related to the Uncharted project they were doing, because I know that Days Gone were like in charge of working on some sort of Uncharted project. I'm guessing this isn't because he wouldn't like out it if that was still in development, right? So it's probably something else, but that's an interesting direction to take it in. A young Sully would be interesting. I can kind of like, as much as I hate Mark Wahlberg for portraying Sully the way he does, I will say some of the lines in Uncharted, like as a whole, the whole entire series, like anyone besides Nate, whenever they talk to Sully, they treat him like he's like an asshole, right? So like clearly Sully has done some like shady shit that we haven't seen, in the past because obviously no one trusts him besides Nate. Um, I don't think it works well for the movie because we've already seen the Uncharted 3 scene where, Sully treats Nate fine because he's like a young kid. Um, but yeah, that would be interesting to see. Um, we always talk about Uncharted continuing with like Cassie or, Cutter or, new characters in general. But going back to like a young Sully would be interesting to see him in his younger days. I feel like that's a direction that PlayStation would probably go in eventually. Like it just seems like a logical step. I don't know. Like it's either they're gonna go in the past or go forward because Uncharted's obviously gonna continue being a thing. There's no reason why Sony would like put so much money into a movie if they didn't see more money potential in that IP. So I definitely think it will still continue. What you think about them going in the past, possibly, with this idea?
yeah, I kind of like the idea of it, right? Like Sully's a cool character that you can expand. Like looking at the quote, basically he was doing an interview with Sacred Symbols,
Okay.
and he was basically just saying that it was a prequel he wanted to work on where he'd be sort of in like his mid 20s, so basically the age Nate is around Uncharted 1, right? So it'd be like mid 70s. It would be after he like leaves the navy and stuff, and just trying to figure out what he's gonna do next, like basically robbing things, that kind of stuff. Um, like it sounds like an interesting concept. They do like speculate in the article on IGN, like obviously Sony Bend was reportedly working on a game at one point, and it might be that maybe this was the game they were working on, but whether he would have mentioned that is another thing. It might just be
Yeah.
it was one of the concepts Jeff had before he left when they were coming up with multiple ideas in pre-production, right? Like it's totally
Hmm.
plausible, and they just went a different direction before Naughty Dog took over. So,
The
um,
only fault I see in adapting a young Sully is I don't know how crazy Sully would have gotten. Like I don't think it would be as fun to play as like Nathan Drake where he's like doing all this
mm,
crazy stuff. Cause I don't know if I mean we don't know, right? Like we don't know if Sully in his prime days was doing crazy stuff like that. But like you'd imagine probably not. Like I don't know. At least that's my gut feeling when I think of Sully. I don't think I'm falling out of a plane and stuff like that.
yeah. Well,
So yeah.
I mean, he also says here like the idea that Ross had was that Sully would kind of be like a classic James Bond. Like he'd
Okay.
just be like this young, like suave guy. But then he mentions like he admits that there was just far fewer opportunities for shootouts in the game. That would have been a big problem because it would have been the first Uncharted game where you don't shoot anybody. Um, which would have been a
Problem.
bit of a change from all the other entries. So that was probably another reason why they didn't go in that direction. But it would be an interesting concept for sure.
Hmm.
Um, Either way, I'm interested in seeing what they do with the Uncharted universe. There's a lot of directions they can go. So I just hope it's good. Whatever they do, I hope it's not just another Nathan Drake story.
I'm
Like I
so
hope they do
conflicted
something new.
because yeah, like if I want Uncharted to continue, I'd want Naughty Dog to be involved. But I also want Naughty Dog to break free and
Do
for the first time in
something
15
different. Yeah.
years do something that's not Last of Us or Uncharted related. So I'm like a little bit conflicted on that because like I know as like personally, I'd love to see Uncharted come back in some form because like it's just exciting and it's like a franchise that I love. But it's also like a franchise we have so many installments with that like it would be more exciting to see them do a new IP. And I think Sony knows that like Naughty Dog hasn't given them like an IP that's been bad yet. Like there's more potential for them starting something new for sure. But obviously, an existing franchise is an existing franchise, so that's like money on the table. So we'll see. They are working on a lot of projects right now, and based on Jason Schreier's like last reporting, like there is some sort of Uncharted project still in development, right, at Naughty Dog. So we'll see what ends up happening as they're doing the Last of Us remake, Factions 2, and maybe even a new Uncharted game. We'll see, alongside obviously a new IP. So crazy times, crazy times. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode. And yeah, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for episode 59. And depending on the day we record it, I may or may not have Elden Ring impressions for you. So it'll be pretty exciting here nonetheless. But yeah, we'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
See you later.